Where's my little green, my little blue line?
I'll try not to push her buttons today during this.
You guys are adorable. Hey everyone, and welcome to Chef AJ Live. I'm your host, Chef AJ, and this is where I introduce you to amazing people who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. My guests today are known as the Indian Rock Vegans, and if you saw the wonderful film Eating You Alive, then you maybe know who they are. Their real names are Sheanne and Dan Moskaluk, and they have an incredible story of reversing disease. And I mean serious disease like cancer, obesity. Please welcome them to the show. I haven't seen you since that time we were in LA for the premiere of the movie.
Nope.
We actually saw you on the cruise. So for us, we see you in very exotic locations, movie premieres, Mediterranean Ocean, not Mediterranean, Caribbean.
But what's it like? I mean, it's like you're movie stars. It's like, does that change your life at all? And I love the way that you got into the film because the film was actually completed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It
was quite interesting. It was during my cancer recovery that just messaging Mayor Lee, the producer, through Facebook, reached out to them. When's the movie coming out? It looks fabulous. This is what we've been through. 2 seconds later, she messaged me. From that Sunday to Thursday, they flew us down to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and we ended up in a movie with all sorts of fabulous people, including yourself and all the rock stars, as you guys are. We were just enthralled to walk amongst giants.
Yeah, it was. It was for us. That was we weren't on social media. We weren't doing anything like that. And so it gave us a springboard to have a platform to start talking about this. And we've been talking about it ever since. So it's kind of what we do.
I mean, it's hard, so many people that come on the show used to be overweight or obese. And when you see them not, it's a hard time picturing them. I cannot imagine you 300 pounds.
Yeah, I guess the story really started with me in that classic, right? After each pregnancy, I gained more and more weight. And I really
tried everything under the sun.
I tried everything under the sun. I did the Weight Watchers and the Nutrisystem and all of those programs, which worked well. I was on them. But the minute you go back to eating the standard American diet, you gain the weight back. And so, I guess, and Dan's really the one that pushed me to do my before pictures because I was so embarrassed of being that large. It so affects your life. I lived on the sidelines and watched my family play games and go camping and go skiing. And I was kind of like sitting in the stands watching life unfold in front of me instead of participating in it. And, I also knew that I was an embarrassment. I know my kids loved me, but they were embarrassed of me when I would go to birthday parties with them or school outings or things like that.
Bullying too.
Yeah. My daughter ended up getting in trouble in high school because she punched a guy because he said something about, oh, your mother's so fat. And then when she came home, and the principal's office had sent her home early, she wouldn't tell me why, because she didn't want to embarrass me or make me sad. And she told me everything. So I thought, what could possibly have transpired that she wouldn't be willing to tell me? And so I said, did he say something about how fat I was? And she just burst into tears.
Yeah. It wasn't that they were embarrassed about you. I think it was more that they were worried about your health, and it's a stigma.
And I just kind of came to the conclusion that I would be obese for the rest of my life, and it became kind of my identity. And I baked for a local coffee shop. And if it didn't have butter or lard or cream cheese or eggs or tons of sugar in it, I didn't make it. And people loved my baking, but it was kind of like my identity and it was my currency. If somebody did me a favor or something, I would make them a cheesecake or that type
award-winning peach pie
or a peach pie or all of those kind of things. So it wasn't until my son was in grade 10 that he joined a gym and he wanted to be a bodybuilder weightlifter. And he was told by a trainer, well, you'll need to have lots of protein, whey protein, if you're ever going to put muscle on. And so I went off to the health food store to buy one of those giant jugs of whey powder. And that was such a pivotal moment because the saleswoman, bless her heart, says to me, who are you buying this for? I said, my son. How old? 15. She kind of leans in and quietly says, you need to do some research before you give this to your kids. And I'm thinking, what sales lady says that? So I went home and I Googled whey protein powder. And again, by the grace of God, I came across a video by Dr. John McDougall, The Perils of Dairy. And I remember watching it and thinking, okay, who is this crazy quack? This is insane. This is completely opposite
been told
of
otherwise.
everything you've ever been taught about dairy your entire life. But it was so intriguing that I watched it 3 more times. And then that was it. I was hooked. I just started to read and consume as much information as I could. I watched all the documentaries. I read all the books. I watched all the YouTube lectures. And I realized that I needed to transition the way that I was eating.
And feeding your family.
Well, actually at the beginning, I was cooking both ways. I was cooking a meal for the kids. I had 2 teenagers and my husband. And so I'd cook them the standard American thing. And then I'd cook a meal for me. And then I read the China study, and that was it. I was like, there is no way I can continue feeding my family this way, because it would be like buying them cigarettes or something, right? And so I said, it was actually April 1st, April Fool's Day. And 2011, I cleaned everything out of the house, out of the freezer. I showed up at my neighbors' houses with bricks of butter and things of pounds of bacon.
Thinking back now, it's like,
so that was probably really a nasty thing to do to my neighbors, but I'm like, hey, do you want this? And they're looking at me like I'm crazy. And so, yeah. And I said, too bad, so sad. This is how we eat at home now. And it was not popular, wasn't well received initially. They would pick at their food and then they'd go off for a drive, which I think they'd hit drive-throughs at McDonald's and Burger King and things like that. But and to be fair, my cooking wasn't great at first. And then I got better and better. And pretty soon I'd let them have, we'd have a cheat day on a Sunday and they could eat anything they wanted. And then they started to realize that Monday morning, they were not feeling very well.
Yeah, 5 days of the week, 6 days of the week felt fabulous. That one day following that meal of animal derivative foods felt like didn't feel good at all.
So
you make the connection.
Yeah, so they started making the connection and they slowly got on board.
Yeah.
And so for me, over the next 2 years, I went on to lose over 100 pounds.
130 pounds.
Yeah. And it was, after you learn how to re-grocery shop and recook, it was the easiest thing I'd ever done. You're not weighing stuff. You're not, portioning out. You're just cooking a ton of vegetables, making a lot of vegetables and oil-free and whole grains. And, it was definitely a learning curve for sure.
Yeah. And then, so it was interesting too, because during that 2-year period, of course, outside the home, as a police officer, I'm shift worker and I'm picking up meals to go and things. But so 95% of the time I'm eating that way. She's eating that way 100%. She gets results. In the 2 years that I was doing it at 95%, metabolic syndrome disappeared, high blood pressure disappeared, high cholesterol disappeared, and I dropped about 35 pounds. And we're on the cusp of retirement and almost empty nesters. And we were like, my gosh, we got the world by the tail. We're healthier than we've ever been.
Yeah. So we thought we were kind of bulletproof. And
that brings us, the 2 years brings us to November 9th, 2013 was that fall. After a week of abdominal pain and kind of wondering, something's going on, kidney stone, kidney infections, because that's where the pain was. Rushed to the emergency ward and typical thing, going for the scans. Doctor pulls us into a room, clutching the papers and results. And within 2 words of walking into that room, he said, Dan, it's not kidney stones. It's your kidney. Your right kidney's one massive tumor. And it's kidney cancer, stage 4, as the tumor is metastasized. It's in your lymph nodes and it's grown up the vena cava, heading towards your lungs and your heart. And that was the very moment that was it. 100% plant-based, and I haven't looked back. And since that day, we're coming up to 8 years now. the only medical intervention I had, I'm cancer-free still, and beating a 5% odds of survival to 5 years. Here we are marking 8 this November.
Yeah, so 95% chance of dying.
Yeah, and I had a very brief medical intervention at the beginning, where essentially immediately that December 24th, it was into the hospital in Vancouver, the 4 of us, for Christmas Eve is how we spent it. They removed my kidney, pulled the tumor successfully out of the vena cava, cleaned out some immediate lymph nodes, but of course they can't go digging around removing all the lymph nodes. So I was left with some affected lymph nodes. They weren't sure if I'd recover or even I make it through surgery. But they went going into it. It was extremely
that
healthy.
surgery was a huge cut, and they take out all your organs to clean everything out and then put them all back. So they said there's a good chance that you could bleed out just during the surgery. So that was
prior to surgery. That's when we really, when you look at changing and really amping up.
So it was interesting because I've been kind of doing general research and reading all of these different books about how a whole food plant-based lifestyle affects so many diseases. And I have to say, for the first 2 weeks, it was like we were zombies, because you just get that rug pulled right out from under you and you can't even function. You're so fragile and in disbelief because this happens to somebody else. It doesn't happen to you. And
51 years old.
After about 2 weeks, I thought, well, God, I've been reading about this for 2 years. Let's put it to the test. And I also really looked into cancer and nutrition. And I was shocked to discover that there's about 100 years of data showing that animal protein promotes cancer cell growth.
Yeah.
And you're pissed because you're like, why hasn't somebody told us about this? But then you're thinking, okay, well, we've been eating this way, 95% for you, for the past 2 years. Let's go. Let's just keep going. And then we took the deep dive into what I call our program of nutritional excellence, where we were just eating massive amounts of greens, no sugar, no oil, no broken grain, like not even flour products of any kind, just whole grains. And so we just, we were so clean, mean, and lean.
Yeah. And then going into the diagnosis, the physicians, all my medical team were astounded. They said, well, you're an extremely healthy individual for your age, aside from the stage 4 kidney cancer. So they said, you're an excellent candidate for the surgery. So we're very optimistic as for your surgery. They said, we would be naive to think that this will not spread or grow, because in all likelihood, it will. That's the prognosis. And they said months to 2 years. And they said, you're going to get sicker. And it's going to be a miserable 2 years if you make it that far. So we got through the surgery. And again, they were just astounded as to how I bounced back from the surgery. It was a brutal surgery. And but that brought us into the spring of 2014. And by March, they said, well, chemo radiation is not effective for kidney cancer. The only medical intervention option would be a trial study. And that was at the time when immunotherapy drugs were just starting to be tested. So they said, you're a perfect candidate because of your health condition and how healthy you are to join into this phase 1 that was starting. And that was going to be a combination of 2 immunotherapy drugs. This meant a 5-hour travel every 3 weeks to Vancouver from the interior in British Columbia to sit in the chair in the chemo ward and get the combination of the drugs. And the protocol was going to be 3 treatments of the 2 drugs every 3 weeks, for 4 sessions. And that was going to be followed by one of the drugs as a maintenance drug for the rest of my life, or as they put it, forever how long your body can endure it. Well, I only made it to the 3rd treatment of the combination drugs when I had an extreme side effect where the drugs hit my liver. So what happens is the immunotherapy drugs, of course, bump up your immune system to a point where it's like unleashing or opening the cage of a wild tiger, not knowing what that animal is going to do. It hit my liver and it just about killed me that night when I had the high fever, which is a red flag for cancer people, and went into the hospital and said, your liver is about to calf out. So I was dismissed immediately from the trial study at that time. That was in May. So,
was it May?
Yes, May.
Oh, May.
So
Okay.
I haven't had medical intervention now since May of 2014. And I kept recovering. And every time we go to the oncologist and to the specialist for the trial study, I'd walk in looking essentially the way we do now. And
Maybe even better.
Maybe even better. We're a little leaner. And they would just, well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. And the interesting thing was, we mentioned that we were plant-based, and that if it's a trial study, would you not be interested in that factor? Would that not be a concern? They didn't want to hear anything about it.
Doesn't matter.
No.
Eat what you want. They rolled their eyes at us. Food doesn't matter. And it was, and yet, just before you were finally dismissed from the cancer agency, when they closed your file, we would see a different oncologist every time we go, because they were all so fascinated by him. It was like they all wanted to see this guy that was not just surviving, but thriving. Stage 4 renal cell carcinoma.
I've never felt such glee and just ecstatic as to walking in there and your pins and needles. What's the test results going to be? And then again, no growth. In fact, we're seeing shrinkage. So shrinkage when it comes to cancer is a good thing for guys. And so by that September, they said the remaining 3 lymph nodes are shrinking. So we can say that you're definitely in remission. And the next scan would have brought us to January, just into 215. So within about 15 months of diagnosis. And they said, we're closing your file because your cancer is radiologically undetectable, and essentially you are cancer-free.
It's unbelievable. It sounds like they should write up in the medical literature.
I get goosebumps every time. And when you see that, or you go through an experience like that, I think, and everybody will say who's cancer diagnosed survivor, is that it's a double-edged sword. It's a blessing, it's a curse. You don't know how long. I don't know what's going to happen next, but we're marking 8 years now where they said 2. Every day is a blessing. I finish the day, I jump into bed, I think about the day, I close my eyes, I have a great night's sleep, and then I wake up the next day, I open my eyes and I say, here goes another one. And be it what it may. And I said, everything, here we are. And just by changing what was on the tip of our forks makes such a big difference.
I like to always say to people, it's like, I don't think I'm the original person that says this, but it's, you don't just fix one thing, you fix everything, right? Because it's like you change the way you eat. And if obesity is my issue, goes away. If cancer is your issue, cancer free. Well, cancer's a little bit.
You definitely are going to increase the odds in your favor, and you could tip the balance in your favor. You will be healthier throughout your cancer experience, and you may just do it to a point where the genes click.
And I think it's. I mean, we have to say it's not a silver bullet, but it's certainly tipping the scales in your favor. And we know for diabetes and heart disease and obesity and all of those kind of things that a whole food plant-based diet it's an amazing thing to do. And
we always, when we on social media, we always post when we show the success stories with obesity or diabetes or heart disease. It's when you see diet products, they always say results may vary. Well, ours is always results are typical because they are, as you know, and everybody knows who's already changed this lifestyle method. Everybody is just astounded. When she lost her weight, we would be in town and we'd come across friends we hadn't seen for a little while. And in particular, if Sheanne had her sunglasses on, or
we went to a wedding.
Went to a wedding one time. Yeah, I went to a wedding. And all my friends, and it was funny because, when you have a conversation, usually people will face everybody. But here they were definitely just facing me and looking over to the side, looking her up and down with this look on their face. Wow, Dan's got a new chick.
Dan brought a date to the wedding. Where's Sheanne?
Where's Sheanne? And then Sheanne would start talking and their mouths would just drop. And wow, Sheanne, and for those who knew her when she was heavier, when she would meet women friend as well too, it was quite emotional.
I had a couple of interactions that I thought were really interesting, and it happened multiple times, is that, a woman who'd struggled with her weight her whole life would see me, and I had one that just burst into tears. And I'm sorry. She was so overwhelmed at my weight loss because I think, you see these before and after pictures in magazines and stuff like that, but you never meet those people. And then to see somebody do it makes it, I think, a reality that if she can do it, I can do it, and that it's possible, and that you don't have to struggle with your weight your whole life, and that you could reverse your obesity. And so, like I said before, I mean, putting out my before pictures was really tough. But when I do it on occasion, it's just the number of comments that you get, because people are
a lot of thank yous.
Yeah, inspired. And that's the reason I do it. I don't do it to have people say, oh, you look great, or blah, blah, blah. It's to show people that if I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
And so going forward, that's kind of what we'll spend the rest of our lives doing, is talking about a plant-based diet. But for many reasons. And we came into this for health. And then I think when you start to research what animal protein does to the body, and then you start to learn about how animals actually arrive on your plate, you're horrified, because we have been so deceived. Into my mid-40s, we both thought that cows ate grass and gave milk.
Made milk.
And yet I nursed 2 babies, and I'm thinking, how could I have been so duped?
Yeah.
Because of course we know as mammals, they need to get pregnant and give birth. And what's happening to all those calves, particularly the male ones? And so you have all of these eye-opening experiences, baby male chicks, all kinds of the whole pork industry,
animal derivative foods. It was interesting too, because it was during my recovery period. We'd never been online kind of people. We had a desktop, not a laptop. They got me an iPad, and of course I joined some of the social media pages. I think as a police investigator, as a police officer of 33 years with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, I deal with facts, I deal with evidence. I'm an investigator. I have an inquisitive mind. And first and foremost, though, when I started learning about the animal agricultural industry, was the victimization and the violence and the degree and how intense and horrific violence this was, being subjected to against these living beings. And I've always advocated for to prevent victimization, to prevent violence, to investigate violence, to assist victims of violence. So as a police officer, it's pretty much galvanized into my train of thought as to if something, violence and a person is being oppressed or you've victimized, I want to try and stop it, and I want to try and educate people about it, and I want to help that victim. So we certainly became not only plant-based food advocates, but staunch and very active animal rights activists.
Yeah.
So that led us down that path. And again, that has brought us in contact with just the most amazing people all around the world, who we, together we're trying to just direct this to make people realize and just have an open mind and an open heart as to what we're doing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, we identify ourselves as whole food, plant-based vegans. And it seems really complicated to some, new to this lifestyle, because, there's lots of people who are plant-based and wear leather shoes and belts, or there's vegans who eat a lot of junk food. We know Oreo cookies and potato chips and Coca-Cola are vegan. But so we kind of do it all. We strive to be whole food plant-based, particularly at home. Sometimes it's a little harder when you're out and about, but generally speaking. And then we eliminated all animal products from our lifestyle: makeup, cleaning products, wardrobe,
so essentially
anything.
The trifecta of health, animal ethics, and environment, because we do know, again, what the impact that animal agriculture has on the environment and the planet. We are participants and active with a Canadian group of lobbyists, Nation Rising, who were trying to knock on our federal government's door to look at parity in our subsidies that go, the immense subsidies that go to animal agriculture. We want to see subsidies going to plant-based agriculture help those farmers transition to a more sustainable and healthy way of growing food, and make Canada that world leader.
And to operationalize our Canada Food Guide. I mean, I've been to a plantation conference down in California a few times, and when you go there, everybody's like, "Oh my God, the new Canada Food Guide! You guys are amazing!" I think everybody, the world thinks we're just Canadians eat nothing but broccoli, and because in 2019, our new Canada Food Guide came out, and it eliminated dairy as a food group. It promoted choosing plant-based proteins over animal-based proteins, and it said make water your beverage of choice.
So we were thrilled.
And so, well, that came out, there really hasn't been any follow-up to actually educate the public as to why you need to do those things, and to help our institutions, our schools, our prisons, all our hospitals to be serving better food.
So they promised us a national school food program that would reflect the Canada Food Guide, meaning encouraging plant-based food products. So we're hopeful. So Nation Rising, which is across Canada, we just finished a campaign of meeting with our members of Parliament and opening their eyes to it. And we're hopeful, because I think altogether we've got to make this large paradigm shift to a plant-based food system. For so many reasons.
So, I mean, really, a chance encounter with a salesperson at a health food store while I was buying whey protein powder has changed our lives in absolutely every way possible. And
here we are, live on Chef AJ. We spent a lovely evening at your house during the premiere when the movie back.
Actually, I just have to, and way back then, which was what, 2017, 2016? At your house, you gave us one of these fridge magnets. It says Chef AJ calorie density chart, and it's always eat by the red line, before the red line. So we have 2 of those on our fridge. So, and I always reference that to people.
It's been an amazing journey, and there's been nothing like police work has been very rewarding, helping people through difficult situations, dealing with communities, deals with disasters, natural disasters, all sorts of serious crimes. And I've been a media spokesperson for the past 10 years. And so I've just essentially changed my communication platform to health and the plant-based lifestyle and advocating for animals. And, as an animal rights activist, as a police officer, my organization wasn't too keen on seeing me on the other side of the protest lines. But it's my constitutional right to do so. And like I said, here we are live with Chef AJ.
So we went from plant-based. I started volunteering at animal sanctuaries about 3 years ago. Dan joined me about 6 months ago.
At the latest one.
We volunteer for Little Oink Bank Pig Sanctuary, where there's 74 pigs and cows and goats and sheep and chickens and ducks. And that's been a huge joy.
We're also part of the Okanagan Health Forum, which is a group of individuals that are strive to educate our communities here in the area.
One of which is Brenda Davis, who you probably know and have interviewed. So we're very lucky to have her on our board of directors. She's become quite a good friend of ours over the last, 4 or 5 years, I guess. So
it's just been an unbelievable opportunity to meet so many amazing individuals who are so passionate about this, who are so dedicated to essentially just helping people be healthy.
Well, people like you. I mean, I quote you. My favorite quote from you is, "If it's in your house, it's in your mouth." I say that to everybody, and it's absolutely the truth. And also, you were one of the first people I ever heard talk about food addiction, that you were a food addict, because I had thought that my whole life, but there's nothing to validate that. There's nobody saying that, or at least at that time there wasn't. You were the first I heard.
Dr. Doug Lyle.
And Doug Lyle as well, but I heard you before I heard Doug Lyle. I think you referenced him, and then I started listening to him as well. But it was like such a mind-blowing moment for me, because and you say this as well, it's like society is fine with you being a food addict. In fact, I think they encourage it. And to suddenly realize that, because I could never figure out why I was overweight. Everybody else in my family was okay, but I was a food addict. I didn't have an off switch. I had, an endless appetite that could not seem to be ever satisfied. And we call ourselves high volume eaters, which we'll see in the recipe, because we eat mountains of food. It's just that we've changed the mountains of food that we eat, from meat and dairy and all those processed things
to high density, nutrient dense and low caloric value.
Exactly. So, I really have to thank you, Chef AJ, for putting that out there, to say that, food addict, because it was a big game changer for me to realize that you could actually be a food addict. And it wasn't just that you were, I think, obese people have a rough go in our society, not so much anymore because it seems to be becoming quite mainstream. But you're why are you fat? Are you lazy? Are you this? Are you that? And it's just I don't know. There's just something there, just like anybody else who is an addict. It's grabs you and you have to fight hard to get away from it. Yeah. So
that's why it's so hard. There's so many people that still, even doctors, don't believe in food addiction in the plant-based world, where everything is about the fake meats and the fake cheeses. And listen, I'm an animal rights activist too, but that's not helping people lose weight or get healthy or recover from food addiction.
No, you're absolutely right. And it is wonderful for the animals and for the environment, definitely better, but better than what, right? It's like, is it Beyond Burger better than a beef burger? Absolutely. Is it better than broccoli? No. Not so much. Yeah. So
it's interesting. There's certainly, we found that in the younger generation of activists, there's definitely a light bulb going on with respect to health and plant-based eating. And that it's palpable, and it's happening more and more. We see more questions. We get inquiries from our activist circle friends. We see several of them going, "Oh my God, I've just gotten onto this style of eating or this lifestyle, and I'm seeing improvements, and I'm so happy that I'm doing this." So,
I think even, being on the holistic holiday at sea, which has traditionally been about health, and then they started to bring in activists, Dan Matthews from PETA, and then James Aspey was there, and to just give another layer. I think that was, and that makes those two worlds merge, which is a good thing, I think. So, yeah.
A before picture by any chance, or did you save like a large pair of pants from when you were 300 pounds?
I have before pictures, but I do not have any wardrobe. I got rid of that every size I went down. It was like gone, because I didn't want a safety net. I didn't want to think, I'll save these in case I gain a few pounds. So it was like gone. But I certainly do have a before picture that I don't know if
maybe in the show notes, our blog that was entered onto the Eating You Alive, Sheanne's story, a plant-based journey. There's several of the before and afters there, and kind of gives us a summary as well too. It's just what we just explained and what we've lived through. And
it's funny, when Dan said you should put out your before pictures, we really had to scramble to find before pictures because I did not like having my picture taken. I would avoid it at all costs.
Behind the group or
you see my little face sticking out maybe at best.
But we found some, and it's like, wow. But hey.
Yeah.
Dan, did you actually have the kidney removed? Because I didn't understand what Sheanne said. They cleaned your organs, like they cleaned it and put it back in.
Yeah. So it was an extreme nephrectomy where they removed the whole kidney. Where in this case here, of course, my right kidney was one massive tumor. Sometimes they'll do a partial nephrectomy, so they'll section out some of the kidney, leave healthy kidney behind. But in this case here, the cancer had overtaken the whole kidney, and stage 4 refers to where there's metastasize and spreads. So that's what stage 4 means. In this case here, it was growing out of the right kidney, up the vena cava, and had spread into my lymph nodes. categorizing it as stage 4. So the surgery was, removing the right kidney. They opened me up with a chevron across my abdomen. And it's interesting because as our police ranks, you have your corporals, which is 2 hooks, which is 2 chevrons. As their sergeant, it's known as getting your 3rd chevron. Well, I got my 3rd chevron, but it was on my abdomen, not on my shoulder flashes. It was a brutal surgery. And
so because they had to clean out the vena cava, they had to like lift out, because they're all your major organs attached to that.
Well, yeah,
so they had to lift the organs out of the way to clean lymph nodes and get the tumor out of the vena cava. So it was
a brutal surgery.
It was brutal.
Yeah, I lost post-surgery. I lost a lot of weight. She got me up to a healthy weight. And then that goes to show you too, with eating healthy fats in the proper amounts and ratios, and with the other, the nutrient dense foods, I got up to a good healthy weight pre-surgery, and then post-surgery, because of the surgery, what it was, I couldn't eat, and I juiced quite a bit just to get nutrients into me. And then once I healed again, it was essentially, I was grazing on roasted nuts by my bedside, nibbling on
which were raw nuts that I roasted in our oven. And he just would have like maybe a cashew an hour. Yeah. That's all he could eat. Yeah. And I swear that's
and then the weight came back on, and then I just got healthier and healthier and healthier, wondering every day, well, I'm not getting sicker, it's not spreading, so whatever happens, that will happen. But right now, and I always think about that too with other cancer sufferers or survivors or people that are going through it, that focus on how you feel at the very moment. And if you're feeling really good that day, that's how you feel right then and there. And that hopefully if you're not feeling that great that day, then the next day it'll be a better day for you.
Yeah. So here we are. And, not only is Dan surviving, he's thriving. We own
retired
7 acres. He is always like, we cut down our own firewood. He's always falling trees and cutting them all up.
We've always been active.
Like doing amazing physical activity.
Yeah.
And, it's like stage 4 cancer, it's like you can overcome.
If I heard the story correctly, Dan, you were like 95% plant-based for a couple of years before the diagnosis. Is that about right?
Yes.
So do you think that maybe helped a little bit, even though it wasn't full on? I mean, because if you had stage 4, that cancer was growing in you for more than 2 years, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's exactly the great point, is that we were explained that cancer tumor would have been growing for about 15 to 20 years. So we do feel that that 2 years of that almost complete elimination of animal derivative foods certainly helped a lot. It made me healthier because had I gone into the diagnosis not on that lifestyle, that diet, I wouldn't have been as healthy, and who knows what would happen.
And I think it's really interesting too, about 3 or 4 weeks after his surgery, he was still upstairs in bed because he was like bedridden. And I took a call from the oncologist that they'd gotten the pathology report back. And he said, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but this is an extremely aggressive form of cancer. And I remember hanging up the phone thinking, that's it, we're done. There's no hope, that's it. But I think what we've come to realize now is that those cancer cells were in a very hospitable environment in that lab, in that petri dish. And we had made Dan's body a very inhospitable environment for that cancer. And so it just did not grow in his body like it did for the pathologists. And it obviously wasn't an aggressive form in your body.
No.
So, because you're here today.
Yeah.
So
I think we need to find that lady at the health food store, because without her, neither of you would be here. We got to find her.
I mentioned that to her. She's not.
I can't remember what at the time. It was like such an offhanded thing that I kind of looked at her. I don't remember what she looks like, or I can't remember her.
I will track her down.
And yet then I'm worried, like, oh, well, if I did that, would she be in trouble at her job because she's dissuading people from buying the products that they sell? I'm not sure. But yeah, we owe her
I think it would be
huge.
worth it. I've done that with things in my life where somebody that wasn't even in my life had made one comment that changed my life. And I made it my life's mission to track them down and thank them.
We should do that. It would
Yeah.
be a pretty cool thing, wouldn't it? It would. It would. So
no, maybe she's vegan or something. We'll have her on the show. I would love because I love the story behind the story.
Oh,
Yeah.
the stories are amazing.
Yeah.
And your story is your story,
Yes.
you know, and you recount it and retell it. But there's always somebody out there and somebody who's heard it before, loves to hear it again. And when you're walking, no matter where, you know, even within our community, we could be in another city, in another province. We'll have somebody tap us on the shoulder and simply say, thank you. We saw what you'd been through. We saw what you guys had done. We did it too. You changed our lives.
yeah, and you know, you hear that. Well, you know, I reduced my diabetic medication, or I reversed my heart disease, or all of those kind of things. And I feel like those always come at just the right time, that you're thinking, oh my goodness, is anybody listening? What are we doing this for? And then somebody does that and you're like, that's why we're doing this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
One of the things I love in the story is the thing you talked about with the family, and this pertains to other people that are struggling, that you said, you know, this is why I don't like cheat days, especially for people that are struggling with weight or food addiction, is that they really pay attention to how they feel. They did not feel well on Monday.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it was, you know, I think humans are kind of slow learners. And it took a few months of feeling like crap on Mondays before they said, you know what?
That's enough of that.
We don't want to eat that anymore.
And it's funny because then too, when you're looking at what would you eat as the cheat, that changes and transforms.
Yeah. Your taste buds change so much that the thought of like a pastry or a hamburger or whatever you thought was a cheat is not.
No.
It's in. And now it's like, well, for me, one of my go-to comfort food meals that I've, you know, again, I said I volunteered at Sanctuary. We had 3 calves that were rescued from the dairy industry, and they came to us extraordinarily sick, little males and twin females because they're barren. And we struggled with one of them, and we thought we were going to have to put one down, and I was devastated. And I remember driving home from the farm just crying and thinking, what could I eat that would make me feel better? And I thought about all the crap I could have stopped and bought along the way. I came home and made lentils. And I had a big bowl of lentils while I cried over this calf. And I think that's freaky weird, right? That, you know, an obese person that ate chips and all that crap would come home and make lentils. That's how much you can change, and what your cravings change. Like,
yeah. The
by
cauliflower is
Yeah.
so sweet.
yeah, the calf survived. So the calf is still healthy and almost 3 years old. So just as a side note.
Yeah.
But
No, it's just been amazing. And we just pinch ourselves, and we've gotten the opportunity to spend time and get to know everybody in this world. And like I say, walking with giants, from spending several evenings with Dr. T. Colin Campbell and his family on the cruise. We've become very, very close friends with so many people. Dr. Ron Weiss is very dear to us. And we were hopeful, actually last year, we were supposed to go down to Ethos and present there. And of course, with COVID, that kind of quashed that. But so many people. And we're so appreciative and thankful that here we are, this middle-aged couple in this little area of Canada, is where we get to share and be part of this wonderful community that's connected around the world.
Yeah, and 60 is not far off for either of us. And we go out and do like a lot of heavy labor on this property, and you're really stiff at the end of the day, and you go to bed and you think, oh, I'm going to be sore tomorrow. Nope. You wake up, you're fine. You get out of bed and you do it all over again.
Yeah.
And so I think, I don't know, maybe 60s, then 40.
60's the new 40.
Yeah, when you're vegan. Are your kids plant-based now?
Yes.
Yeah, they both continued on. Our daughter maybe eats a little more processed vegan things, but she is definitely vegan. And our son is more so plant-based. And it's funny, he lives in northern British Columbia, and he's a pipeline welder, which is not a vegan-friendly community. But he continued to weightlift and bodybuild on plants and got big and strong and muscular. So he's a great big tall big guy, and so he'll be in these camps on the drill sites or the pipeline sites, and someone, oh, I hear you're a vegan, and he'll kind of look down at them and go, yep. And that's the end of the conversation. And he's just non-negotiable, absolutely good cook. And he's converted.
Both of them are decent cooks.
Yeah. He's converted some other rough welders into being plant-based, which I think is just astounding. Because I think if you live as an example, people are like, what are you doing? You know, what? How come you look like? How come? And then
I think that's the thing. That's the thing. When you adopt this lifestyle, people start kind of like, what's going on here? You glow, your skin complexion, and then they're just intrigued by it.
Yeah. So I think living to, being an example is the best thing. Yeah. Living a healthy, compassionate lifestyle can be infectious, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of the food, Susan wants to know what your favorite things to eat are. And I know you're actually going to also make a recipe, which we're so grateful because as of yesterday, you didn't have any water.
Yeah.
The water system here, we tried to make some things better and we ended up not being able to make the improvement, having to go back to the way it was. So essentially we just made a big mess for
Giant
nothing.
mess.
That's okay.
I don't know if you watched the video I sent you, but we were
panicking,
knee deep in mud, and it was horrible. So well, our favorite things to eat, it's funny, it's the things that we never ate before when we were carnivores, things like lentils, sweet potatoes. We hardly ever ate sweet potatoes before. Now, God,
we do like a nice massive sweet potato bowl with just your variety of things. You open up the fridge.
Beans. We eat so many different beans now, and we cook beans in the Instapot. We do massive batches and then put them on cookie sheets and freeze them. So we have giant bags in the freezer that we can just take a cup or two out of.
Ethnic food of all variety, and that's the other thing too. By changing this way, we love our Thai. We love as well too to veganize or plant-based old recipes that now don't have animal derivative foods. I guess segue into today, one of our really favorite things is what we're about to make today. Is this
and I have to say that I was a little hesitant to choose a salad because I don't like that idea that that's all plant-based people eat, because we do eat salad, but we eat so many other things. But I wasn't confident in our water situation.
There's so many recipe sites. That's the whole point too, is that there's so much food out there. And then relearning to cook as a couple has been a tremendous experience and a lot of fun. And as I've retired now for a couple of years, I'm cooking more, which she's really happy about. It's funny because it seems I get really, really creative. And when I post on our social media, sometimes it's the segments Home Alone Cooking with Dan, and she's out on errands and she looks up, she's, what are you making today? How come you don't do that when I'm home?
When I'm home, he can barely boil water, but when I'm out, man, he makes the most amazing things.
Yeah.
So
the bowls, we love our bowls.
It's like things like, things like we never ate before. Quinoa. This is a
Quinta
quinoa, which is a Canadian product, which we were gonna do a quinoa recipe, but we thought, well, you need water for that. But this is like an amazing complete protein, and it's been sitting on my counter for like a month now. Try and put animal protein on your counter for a month. See how that goes. So many different whole grains, so many different beans that we never ate.
We like
before.
our oatmeal. We like our spinach, greens with sweet potato and beans, black beans as a morning meal. It just goes on and on and on. Say favorite.
We never ate soy products or tofu before, ever. And now, oh my goodness, that's a staple as well. Nutritional yeast. Who knew about nutritional yeast ever? Never heard of that. And that's we buy that in 5 kilogram boxes now.
We're part of a bulk food organic food order group. So twice a year we get our beans, lentils, and chickpeas dry.
And then things like rolled oats. I think we all grew up eating rolled oats, but we didn't know what oat groats were. even more delicious, right?
Savory.
Crunchy, nutty, and
Savory
wonderful.
oat groats.
Savory oat groats, combining lentils with oat groats. I mean, I feel like people think that when you adopt this lifestyle that you give up a lot. I feel like we gained a lot. We eat such a different variety now, more variety. And then, you get geeky. We had some friends over for dinner. I guess this was just pre-COVID. And I listed off how many grains, vegetables, how many plants we ate in that dinner. And it was 32 different plants that were combined in the dinner and dessert. And I thought that's so cool. And
the eating can just be just as much fun as entertaining as anything else. The other day, we had a potluck a couple of summers ago, pre-COVID.
The other day, a couple of summers ago,
because it's all a blur with COVID. But it was a lovely potluck, and the host suggested they have a lovely farm as well, and we grow our tomatoes. So he asked that everybody bring a couple of their favorite varieties of tomatoes, and that we would have a tomato testing, tomato pairing demonstration. So we ended up with this large cutting board with the tomato tops to show their lovely features of colors and texture, and then these about 24 varieties of tomatoes delicately sliced up, and we tasted tomatoes. It was better than any wine tasting.
Right, and it was great.
Yeah.
Because we did give up alcohol, that was after we went plant-based, well, me 10 years ago, you, whatever. And then, we thought, gosh, we've done all of this. Why are we still drinking alcohol? Especially, the World Health Organization says that the only safe amount is 0. And there's so much evidence of cancer reoccurrence with alcohol. So we thought, that's it. That's got to go.
Increasing your odds of developing cancer.
Right. Yeah. So we eliminated alcohol probably about
4
or 5 years ago. So to go to a potluck with all your friends and do a tomato tasting instead of a wine tasting is
cool, especially in wine country here.
Yeah, we do live in wine country in the Okanagan. But yeah, we think it's a waste of land. People should be growing food, not alcohol. So,
but
anyway,
let's segue into today. Can we say what we're making?
Well, please, and we thank you so much for giving me the recipe. It's already in the chat, and it's not in the chat, it's in the show notes. So if you're watching on Facebook, you need to be on YouTube to see those show notes, and you need to be on YouTube on Wednesday for our 500th episode when we're giving away 2 Nutri-Milk machines. We can't see your Facebook comments, and you can be in Canada. You can win if you're in Canada or the United States.
We'll be there.
Yeah.
So today,
are you going to move the camera?
I will move the camera, but I'll just introduce what we're doing. This is inspired by one of our favorite food bloggers as well. Is inspired by a pinch of yum, and this is a chopped Thai salad. But of course, we've made some omissions, and just to show you again that.
Are you going to move the camera?
Yeah.
So I think. I really like, people are like, oh, well, I don't have any recipes. Yeah, you do. There's a million recipes that you can convert once you know the basic principles of everything. So this salad had, initially chicken breast, gone. And it had 1/3 of a cup of canola oil, which is like, why? What does that do? It does nothing. It doesn't add flavor. It just adds calories. So the original recipe had all of that oil in it. So that's 28% of your total daily fat intake. So that was 21 grams of fat. And it's like, just get rid of that. So I think that it's, Dan's just adjusting the camera.
Sorry about that.
I think it's really good to know that you can take a lot of recipes and create a whole food plant-based recipe from that inspiration. And so don't be afraid to just go and look at regular recipes and change them. All right. Are we good? You got your finger on the thing.
Sorry.
Okay. So we're going to just make this. I've got everything cut up and ready to go. I've got my trusty Vitamix.
How's that?
What do you think? Can you see us?
I can see you. Thank you.
Is that good? Okay. So this is a chopped Thai salad. And there's a few things that I like about it because, I think kale, I remember my first job was at something called Mother's Pizza Parlor, and we had salad bar at that restaurant, and the kale was used to decorate the salad bar, and then we would just throw it in the garbage. Nobody ate kale before. And so I think that this is a really good introductory recipe, your fingers on there too, for people who are eating kale and lots of different things. So the dressing is got 3 cloves of garlic, which of course is so good for you. And I just roughly chopped it, even though this is a Vitamix and it can take care of it. That's another thing. I didn't buy a Vitamix until 5 years into this lifestyle. I had a cheap little blender that I got at a thrift store for $12. And that got us through for 5 years before I guess my Scottish background wouldn't allow me to spend that much money on a blender. But if you can afford it, great thing. So that was 3 cloves of roughly chopped garlic. This is, of course, ginger that I cut up as well. We're going to use about a tablespoon of this. And I think for me, I always follow a recipe to the T the first time, and then I modify. I modify a lot of stuff. So, and then soy sauce, I like to use the Bragg's. And let's see, we're going to do 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. That's 2 and 3. And then water. We're going to put in 2 tablespoons of water.
Oh,
1.
so terribly sorry. Our
My cameraman. That's 2. Got it?
yeah, it's the
You can see it's okay. We're good. Okay, and so 2 tablespoons of white vinegar. And of course, if you read How Not to Diet by Dr. Michael Greger, he says we should be having vinegar on a daily. So that's always a good thing. So the recipe calls for maple syrup, which is, okay. But you can often replace anything that is sweet or that you need to add sweet with date paste. And this is just regular dates that I throw on the stove with some water, and I simmer them until they get nice and gooey. And then I just like to keep a little container of this in the fridge. And if anything needs to be sweetened up, you can throw some of this in. It's full of fiber. It's, not a processed thing. So let's see, it said 2 tablespoons of maple syrup. So we're going to put in roughly what 2 tablespoons of dates would look like. And I think the thing about that's interesting too, is it gives your dressing more body and structure that could replace what the oil will do for it. Let's see what else. So I did the ginger and then lime juice. And of course, you can always get more juice out of a lime if it's at room temperature, if you even pop it into the microwave for 20 seconds. So the original recipe, as I said, had 1/3 of a cup of oil, and it only had, I think, maybe a tablespoon of lime juice. So I just increased the lime juice. I just put in more. That happens to be about 1/3 of a cup. So my volume will be the same, but my contents are way healthier.
we also like to add orange juice to it too. Lime and orange gives that citrus. Yeah.
Sometimes. So it also asks for sesame oil, which is a wonderful flavor, but of course it's oil, so it's highly refined. So what I've done here is I've just taken raw sesame seeds and I've toasted them in the oven for a little bit until they get really fragrant and flavorful. And so I'm going to add those in to the dressing to give it that nice sesame flavor, because this is a chopped Thai sesame salad.
So about 3 tablespoons of those.
Yeah, about that, give or take. Recipes are a suggestion.
Can I just ask you a question before the chat moves quickly for me? Gina said, are you part of the Plant-Based Nutrition 101, a Canadian Facebook group? They would love to see you there.
I believe we are on that.
We
Yeah.
are.
We haven't put much content on it, but we are on that. Yes.
Yeah, I think just recently, weren't we?
Yes.
Yeah. But thank you. And if we're not, we'll definitely check into that, because us Canadians need to stick together and really push this forward. I think you Americans are so much further ahead as far as that goes. So, okay, so let's see. We've done the garlic, soy sauce, water, vinegar. We've done the date paste. we've done this toasted sesames, ginger, and the thing. So that is everything we need for our dressing. So we're going to whirl that up quickly. Of course, it's going to be really loud. All right, I won't drag you through that too long. If this wasn't a live video, I would probably do that for longer, but I'm not going to subject you to that. Oh, can you smell that? It smells so good.
It's a very fragrant salad. It's just amazing.
Yeah, all right. So the next ingredients that I think are interesting are edamame beans. Never ate these pre-vegan, pre-plant-based ever. And so these come frozen. And I often get asked this question, well, I can't afford to buy a lot of fresh vegetables. Buy frozen ones. For instance, on the back of this package, it says that they have been quickly frozen within 24 hours of harvesting, which means that they're more nutritious. They have more nutrients in them because we know vegetables lose nutrients as they sit on our grocery shelves. So I would hazard a guess that a lot of the food that you buy fresh at the grocery store has been hanging around for a lot more than 24 hours. So frozen is a great option. So never fear the frozen if you're on a budget. Absolutely. So what else can I talk about? So we're also going to talk with cashews. We buy all of our nuts raw. And then if I want to toast them, I toast them myself in the oven. And that's something we never did before. Nuts were always roasted in oil and salt. That's how you bought your nuts, right? And so now, I guess that was a palate change as well, initially, but now we love nuts raw so much better. Okay, so we've got our dressing. And what I like about this recipe is that, is the lighting okay? Can you see everything? Yep. Is that this kale is finely chopped. And I know a lot of people, when they first eat kale, they find it so stiff, so hard that they're kind of put off by it. And this is chopped, as you can see, really finely. And I have to say, here's another thing I love. And I learned this from a friend years ago. I keep all my vegetables like bouquets of flowers. I bring them home and I put them in, I cut the stems off like you would with flowers, and I put them in a vase of water. And then I usually put a plastic bag over top, and then I put them in the fridge. So that's how they live. So I have a vase, a bouquet of kale, and a bouquet of cilantro, which we're also going to have in this recipe. And so this one is just, this is how it stores in the fridge. It's got a little, the bag that it came in. And then I have a bouquet of green onions, because of course there's the roots on the bottom. So they're sucking up that water and everything just stays so much fresher and nicer. So it's a great way to do it. So we have the kale, and this is like a lot of kale. This is 3 bundles, or I don't know what do they call them, bundles of kale from the grocery store. And then we add in the edamame beans, which of course has soy. Lots of people are afraid of that, but we know it's super good for us. And then colors.
Look at that.
We've got red peppers, yellow peppers, orange peppers, because we know that every vegetable, every different color provides a different nutrient, just more. So we want as many colors as we possibly can. So
do it in sections first.
Okay. So sorry, we're going to add the red peppers. This is such a beautiful salad. It's so visually appealing. And the yellow peppers and the orange peppers, all chopped up. And of course, there they are, orange, red, yellow. And then some green onions out of the vase. And this is a whole bundle of cilantro. And I know some people hate it and some people love it. We happen to love it. So, and that's a whole, what is it, bundle? I don't know why I'm thinking, but anyway, so there you go. And that is everything that goes into it. Oh, carrots.
Your date paste.
It's in the dressing. And so just some grated carrots as well. This is 3 large grated carrots. So look at all.
Every time we make
colors.
this, and before you toss it, you just look at it and admire it. You see all the colors.
Look at that. I mean, it's the red, the yellow, the orange, greens, different shades of green. It's like, it becomes art. I'm sorry, but a steak or some piece of dead flesh on a plate is not pretty like this. This is beautiful.
And that's why we're made to eat that way as well, too, because it's visually appealing to us. We're attracted to it.
That's right. We see the tiny variations of color, whereas a carnivore just sees movement. That's enough to make it appealing. So this might seem a little primitive or whatever, but I like to toss salads.
It's functional.
It's functional. I like to toss salads with my hands. I think there's
you're massaging the kale.
I'm massaging the kale. That's right. So, and I'm actually going to add this dressing in as well. So I'm going to just pour that all over.
Oh.
And again, that would be, I'm just going to grab a spatula.
It's one of the more fragrant salads that we have, that we enjoy. And again, with pre-vegans, it's always a hit.
Right.
And everybody's always like, well, what about dressings? No oil. Where am I going to? Oh my gosh.
There's so many.
Google no oil salad dressing.
Or just find a nice recipe and just eliminate the oil and add some more juice or something like that. All right. So that's all out of there. And I think another thing that people always say to us when they start out is like, oh, but I'm always hungry. I'm not getting enough food. Then eat a bigger salad or eat more, right? Like look at how big this bowl is. Can you see how big this bowl is? This is just for Dan and I, okay, maybe that seems extreme, but hey, whatever. So I'm just going to mix it all together and you can just see, look at all those beautiful colors.
And again, because kale is quite a hard, unplug it. Kale is, it's a stiff, hard green. So doing that, massaging it, kind of softens it up.
And by chopping it into smaller things. So.
Look at that.
So I would go on and on like this, get it all thinged out. Just making sure it's all, and it just smells so good. I love this salad. And again, we don't eat just salads. I mean, this just happens to be one of our favorite ones. Now I'm going to muck up my covers because I forgot to get my plates out first. All right. So in serving this for Dan and I kind of press it down on the plate so I can get as much on the plate as absolutely possible.
It's a lot of chewing.
Yeah, it's a quiet meal because we're just chew. But I always say about salads is like, you should have trouble carrying 2 plates to the table. They should be so big and heavy and, plentiful because you want to eat a lot. And as you know, on your little chart, this is it's nutritionally dense, calorically light. So you need to eat a lot.
Did you go through the nutritional values of this recipe?
Well, I just really wanted to focus on taking that fat away. Instead of 21 grams of fat, we've taken this down to, naturally occurring fats, then that's about it. So, and then I like to top it with a few cashews, which these are raw cashews that I toasted myself in the oven. And I just, we'll just get that out of the way. I know it looks kind of like a mess, but yeah, I just put some cashews on top and there's lunch or dinner. We often have this for dinner.
And it's interesting too, is that we do intermittent fasting and we do fasting as well. And when it's, you're breaking the fast and you eat something like this, that's when you notice, that's a lot of chewing. But again, we do know that chewing serves a purpose as to breaking the enzymes into up and helping
the start of the whole nitric oxide series or whatever the word is that I'm looking for. But so that's one of our favorite salads. It combines a lot of different things. You can sub out the oil for more juice. You can sub out the maple syrup.
That way we're not on the mess.
Oh, sorry. and it's beautiful. The colors are absolutely gorgeous. And it's a great way to get your greens in, particularly kale. So good for you. You want to eat as many greens as possible.
Chopped Thai salad.
Yeah.
By Indian Rock Vegans.
Inspired by Pinch of Yum.
Yeah.
So that's it for this salad. Quick and easy once you got all your chopping done.
That looks absolutely amazing. There is a question asking, what did you eat when you first started to lose weight? And is that what you're eating now as well?
I think when I first started, because it was a new way of cooking, we ate a lot of stir fries, but with water instead of oil. So a lot of ethnic foods, like a lot of ethnic recipes, because by default, ethnic food is often plant-based. And so we did have, I remember we ate a lot of rice and stir fries, and, with big piles of broccoli. And
John McDougall's Ultimate Weight Loss was.
Yeah, that is still one of my great books that, because I think for Christmas and Easter, mostly Christmas, I guess, you kind of tend to have more vegan food. You feel like you need to have, I don't know, more decadent things. So I always reread John McDougall's program for maximum weight loss, and that just gets you right back. And so yeah, a lot of stir fries, a lot of stir fries, not so much salads, because we do eat a lot of salads in the summertime, but we are in Canada, we're in the north, and I think you just need
a lot of lovely stews.
Yeah, a lot of stews.
The Instapot was a game changer for us too, when that came along.
Yeah, lots of and then it was just easy, like things like chili that I'd been making my whole life. You just omit the meat, and you have beans and tomatoes and corn and sweet peas
that's another recipe
potatoes.
That makes a great show. That chili is just amazing.
Yeah, so there were a lot of things that were easy to convert by just eliminating the meat and the oil initially, and then as I went along, I got more creative, and it was interesting. And I remember, and I know what it's like at first, it does feel like a struggle. It's like, I remember feeding the family breakfast, and I'm like, oh my God, thank God that's over. I figured out what to give them. And then I was like, lunch, what the hell am I going to feed them for lunch? And it would be a struggle through, oh my God, dinner. And I'd have to be looking at recipes and reading labels. I'd spend hours in the grocery store with a magnifying glass, making sure the ingredients were okay. And now it's easy. I don't think about anything because I know how to do it. I know my favorite recipes, just like before, when you didn't have to look at a recipe because you'd made it and it's one of your staples and you just don't have to think about it. You do this long enough, it all becomes second nature.
Yeah.
It can seem overwhelming at first, but just keep going, and it just gets easier. And that's, I think, like a lot of
things.
You
guys are living proof of what is possible. I once heard, I believe it was Dr. Goldhammer, but one doctor saying that it's so hard to just recover from obesity that some people have a better chance of recovering from cancer. But you guys, you did both.
We did both. And again, we were so thankful of we're thankful for people such as yourself.
Yeah.
And like I say, all the giants and the pioneers in this lifestyle, and
great community.
Oh, it's such a great community. Like I said, when we met you, and we were just enthralled, and then we spent the evening at your house again too. We just had such a great.
Chef AJ invited us for dinner, along with the producers, from Eating You Alive, after we went to the premiere all together, and we were like pinching ourselves. We're going for dinner at Chef AJ's. It was like, if Rod, Stewart or Mick Jagger had invited us for dinner, we'd be like, yeah, we're busy, sorry. Because we're going to Chef AJ's.
It's so funny. When I got invited to cook for Colin Campbell, so I didn't, everybody I know, I didn't always know. And I remember when Colin Campbell came to town, meaning I lived in LA, this would have been 2010. I had emailed him because I knew he was going to be speaking. Your work influenced me. Can I cook for you? And he's like, he's so kind. He's like, I'm so sorry, but I'm obligated to my host. And I'm like, oh, well. And then I get an email from his host of this particular speaking engagement, Hans Deal, saying, Dr. Campbell's coming for lunch. Can you please be the chef? And I'm like, yeah, you don't have to pay me for that one, So I know what it's like. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's I think we had, Colin Campbell was well, the China study was the quintessential moment for me, where it was like, that's it. And then
he saved my life.
Yeah, to have dinner with him on the cruise, we both wept. He was probably thinking, who the heck am I sitting with? But we were both overwhelmed to be sitting with somebody that has so changed your life.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you guys are changing a lot of lives now. And when you're sure you have water, you can come back. I'm booking for September and maybe just do another wonderful cooking demo. But I'm giving you an assignment. I want you to look for that lady because that was an angel sent down, and we need to find her. And thank her.
You're right. You're right. We will.
Absolutely.
We will. We'll do that. We will do that.
Great.
I promise.
Well, thank you so much, especially since yesterday we didn't even know if this was going to be possible. I really appreciate you. Everybody says you're adorable, you're inspiring, and I agree. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. If you come back tomorrow, we have 2 shows, both culinary demos. At 11 a.m., we have Christine Walter-Meyer. She's been on the show before. She's the founder of The Natural Kitchen. I think I got that right, but she's going to be making something really interesting, kelp noodles with tiger nuts. Tiger nuts are not nuts. They're root vegetables and they taste like nuts. So I can't wait to see the recipe. And at 2 p.m., we have Thomas Allen from California Balsamic doing all recipes with Gilroy garlic. I wish you guys had a United States address because everybody on the show gets 2 free bottles, but we can't ship to Canada. So if you're ever in the States, you'll get your 2 free bottles.
Excellent.
Thank
We're
you
so
so
thrilled
much,
to be here today. Thank you, AJ.
Thank you. That was so much fun. Thanks.
Oh, my pleasure was